So hello and welcome to the Improvement Season podcast, guys. This is me, Pascal Steve. On the other end is Steve. And Steve was just saying that he didn't really feel very good at the beginning of the week. And I think that we can immediately start actually then asking, what was up? What happened, Steve?
Yeah, it's funny because I have a bit of I am in my own head and I overthink things a ton because I have like a side discussion on this where I almost didn't make the post that I did on my story about kind of sharing that information, because part of me is like, will people look at me as if I'm complaining, as if like I think woe is me, and I'm looking for like people to build me up and say like, oh, that's so bad, Steve. I wasn't looking for that at all. I typically wouldn't share these sort of like, if I have a niggle, I have a headache, I don't feel well, like I just keep it to myself because I'm like, no one else needs to worry about this, it's just me. But then I was like, man, so many of my clients get kind of stressed out when they don't feel great one given day, and it's not because of anything they've particularly done, it's just life happens, you know, and you can't always predict these things. So I thought I'd share it, and it got some decent feedback. I'm probably overthinking how important sharing such a message is even, but anyway, you're right. I woke up and I was just not feeling great. I think actually it was, I don't know when it kicked in. I think it kicked in the evening and I wasn't feeling great, and I went to bed early. Yeah, that's what happened on Monday night. I just started not feeling great, had a headache, was feeling fatigued, had a headache, and so like went to bed like half an hour earlier than usual, had like a good 9 hours in bed, and woke up and I still had a bit of a headache and wasn't feeling great. No real identifiable cause or anything, but hopefully, touch wood, it seems like it's passing, and it was like really not much. And I just continued like I normally do with my good processes in terms of nutrition, still could continue to go and train, and just didn't. I think you can hyper focus on these things. Same with like little niggles. If you just don't feel amazing one day, it's kind of similar to like, I don't know, looking at your Aura ring and it tells you your readiness score is down by 10 points, have a rest day. And then you get in your head and you're like, oh no, like, or you missed, I don't know, half an hour, you went to bed half an hour later, you're like, oh no, my training's going to be terrible. It's like, sometimes ignorance can kind of be bliss, or you just kind of go with the flow in a sense, and they just pass. So that was kind of my take home from the experience.
Yeah. One, you don't strike me as the person who's fishing for sympathy. And secondary, yes, I totally agree with you that sharing it has probably inherent value for people who are going through the same thing, or may have gone through the same thing, or may go through that thing in the future, and then are reminded that someone like you is going through that as well, and then you're taking precautious measures probably against it from getting worse or anything alike. And yeah, I have a couple of thoughts as well, but I don't know if you want to respond to this, what I said before that.
No, yeah, you're right. Because I said it, someone responded and was like, oh, I'm glad you shared this. It makes me feel like a bit better about my situation. And I was like, oh, I'm glad you gave me that feedback, because I was worried people would think I'm just fishing for like sympathy, and they're like, yeah, I would have never thought that from you. So it's nice to even know people, you have that impression as well.
And the first section of the Improvement Season podcast is most of the time us chatting and talking about random stuff. And this is one of those things where people are fishing them for sympathy on social media, where they are then setting up the mobile device and crying into the phone.
Oh no.
And I don't get it. Honestly, I don't get it. When I'm in such a vulnerable position, I would never have the idea to set up the mobile device, go to a live stream, or complain about those things to the world. And some people are doing it because they are receiving kind of lots of likes, lots of engagement, and it is crazy. Like, honestly, it is crazy. And I don't. You probably know him. He's I think in London. Also, probably a personal trainer or so, and he does kind of short videos where he takes the piss of influencers, and most of the time,
like Omega something.
Yeah, exactly. And
he's a scouse.
Exactly, and he is always posting the most hilarious things, and this is exactly it. I think covered that one as well, where someone just cried on their phone, and he always pretends as if he's the guy behind the camera.
Yeah, I know the exact videos.
Just think about this, Steve. It's like you are, and we brought up the example of sitting in front of a stadium or so. Right? If you reach several thousand people with your podcast, for example. It's as if you are giving a concert. And some people have millions of followers and they are switching things live and then they are crying into their phone while 50,000 people are watching. Isn't that odd?
Yeah, it's crazy. That's
I mean, to some extent it may be the norm nowadays, but if you really think about it, I can't help but if I just think about that situation to find it very, very odd and strange.
Normally, because obviously you have happy tears, which I can understand much more because you generally want to share those experiences with people and maybe you want to share it with your followers and it's like an emotional, wow, this is amazing. But when you are having dark moments where like the sort of tears you're talking about, they're ones that you reserve for yourself and very few people close to you in my general experience.
I can see that sometimes it may be something so overwhelming, and especially when you are making a living off of that, that you want to let your audience know. And then if it then happens in the moment while you're talking it through, I can see this. Yeah. But with some people, they are hitting the record button and squeezing it out because they know that tears will probably get them more engagement. And that is, to me, the crazy part. It's not about the crying or so in front of a camera. It's more about that they do it intentionally to fish for likes. And that is absurd, for me at least. I don't know how other people feel about this.
It's kind of like manipulation of your audience, isn't it, really? Yeah. Like emotional manipulation. Yeah. That's scary when people are able to do that. It reminds me of actually, I guess, on social media is that movement of having this like how I look in real life versus how I look posed in photos, or this like body positivity movement. And I think some people saw that as like, actually, they weren't doing it because they thought that was a great thing to share that with their audience in terms of, oh, look, I look like this when I'm just sat and I have rolls or whatever. They were doing it as like, hey, that gets engagement, that gets likes, that gets like people talking. Let's post about that. And I think that was criticizing. I guess I saw some people criticizing it because it was like these like really fit individuals who like almost had to force themselves to look like they had rolls and like, I don't know if I can't think of a good example for us, but it's like if we were like, oh, look how bloated I am. And we're like pushing out our bellies and making us try under the worst lighting, trying to look as bad as possible. And we're not doing it to, again, help our audience because we're setting that up as a, like, we don't normally look that way, but we get good engagement and likes and people like, so it's crazy what social media can do to people. And you have to be careful to not get caught up in just what gets likes and follows because it can take you down a path that you actually don't intend for yourself to go down.
Yeah. And probably we are not even following the craziest shit on social media. It's just, I've seen something like Omega. This is the part of social media that I've never come across. It's kind of like as if there's a dark room in the realm of social media. Like, I don't know, for me personally, and I could be completely wrong, this is what TikTok must be like. And I'm a boomer, so I could be very wrong that it's actually not that bad. But the guys that he's taking the piss of, I always have the thoughts that this is what TikTok must be like. And there's some crazy shit that he's then kind of taking a piss of. Like crazy shit where I have to find it funny because it's so absurd. And this is also what he's doing with those kind of posts where he's trying to pretend as if he is in public and someone is then doing this and recording this and he's standing behind the camera. And it's very funny. So guys, check this out.
He doesn't come up. It's funny you see him as well. I don't follow him. He doesn't come up on my Instagram feed ever, but he does come up on my Facebook regularly. Which is strange. Like that's where I've seen his content. So
he does things with Matt Does Fitness. Haven't you?
I hadn't seen those until their newer stuff. Yeah, I'd seen those. He like interviewed some people as well.
Absolutely.
Where have you been seeing them on Instagram?
No, over on YouTube actually.
Oh, on YouTube. That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Just from I don't know. Like,
and now it's always kind of showing me that, recommending some videos of him, and the good thing is that those are such short clips, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And while you're on the phone, you know that kind of thing on YouTube that it is already playing it while you're just watching it without clicking on the video. And I find myself so often just watching that one without sound and all, right? Just because it's such a short thing and just for the giggles, you know?
Yeah. I see it regularly. I think I saw one today where it was like, this came up on Instagram. It was like some prank that this guy played on his wife. And I was like, that looked kind of set up. And then I went in the comments and everyone's like that was clearly set up. And it's like these pranks that are just like or I don't know what it is. Like this guy will go up to these random people and like ask them questions. And it'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe they responded like that. It's because it's like, well, they're bad actors actually, because you can tell.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy shit though, and I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about this because it shocked me when I saw this. In Canada, I don't know what city it was, there was someone being stabbed outside of Starbucks, and people around it. There was kind of a TikTok influencer who filmed the entire thing, and who was just like giggling and saying like shit such as, "Dude, that guy." He's dying. And I was so freaking shocked about, like, honestly, I was disgusted by this. And I don't think that it's often that you see something like this on the webs, because I think that YouTube is very fast in taking things like this down. But it was shocking to see the reaction of a person like this. And it doesn't necessarily need to be him, but it was a representation. It was more important to share this, so to go viral, instead of helping a dying person. And it was shocking to watch. I was very disgusted.
Yeah, that's scary. Like imagine that's you there getting stabbed, and then there's people around you. It's like not helping you, and they're filming you. Like, yeah. Wow. Like that's.
I also shed tears because I was so much imagining that it could be me, and then just 5 minutes ago, you think you're living your life like every other day, right? And then 5 minutes later, you're dead, right? And even now, it just shocks me when I think about this.
It's the sort of thing that you never want to personally experience. You never want to see that. You never want to be see someone else have to go through that. And you just think about it in films. So that's the only way I can think is this younger generation. Maybe they see so much of this, they come like numb to it or something. So when it happens in real life, it's just like a film in their head. I don't know. I'm assuming this person who recorded it was young, but I obviously don't know that.
He was younger. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's messed up.
Once again, these are just like chit chats that we have. Some of them are a little bit harsher, some of them a little bit less appropriate for other individuals, of course. But it is just what it is that we are discussing here, I think.
Social media is just a mad, like just the amount of time, like the amount of businesses that are just built off that. It's just changed like the whole economy in so many ways. And I mean, I have not done extensive research into it at all. I can only comment off what I've experienced, but it's just even me personally, and we talked about it last time, I think, with the number of hours I'm on my phone, and the majority of them are spent on social media platforms. It's like, wow, like I don't know how I feel about that completely. Obviously, it's been tremendous for our business in many ways, but I can't help to think that there's some downsides there as well.
I think so. To take it back to a different topic, which is kind of very similar though, a couple of weeks back we've talked about AI taking over probably our jobs at some point, right? And I still stand by my word. I even become more and more convinced that this is going to happen at some point, especially for online coaches. However, I've been thinking about this more and more so, and I could see that there is then a trend going back to offline personal training. Because there, it will take ages before that part is being taken over. And I saw this over the past couple of years, Steve, and perhaps you've seen this as well. And at the last London seminar, someone in the audience even asked me whether it's still a good idea to transition into online coaching or not. And I think that it is something that we've even talked about. And a couple of years ago, I always thought and said yes. Just give it a try. If it's on the side, go ahead and build it. I'm now at a point where I think it's not even worth it anymore. The competition is too strong. And at the same time, the perspective is probably not given anymore. And you're probably better off to build a very solid offline personal training service.
Yeah, it's very interesting actually, because it's flipped because like the pandemic and everything forced a lot of people to online. And so I think a lot of people stuck there because there was obviously big benefits to that. But now it's become like even more, I don't want to say saturated because I truly don't know, but it's become, there's way more of online coaches. And it's become, like you said, it's very competitive now. It's the most competitive it's ever been. So it's almost like actually, like you said, especially if you've got a good one-on-one in-person business at the moment, I think I would agree with you. Actually, the prospects for online actually don't look as good as like one-to-one, because that, like you said, that's going to take a heck of a long time to truly replace that human connection in person through like AI and robots and everything, because it's just a lot. that
is the main argument that many people had of it will never really replace the personal touch. And I beg to differ. Like online especially, at some point you will not even notice that it's an AI that you are talking with or interacting with. And even then the AI would probably do a much, much better job because it's independent of ulterior motives, for example, self-interest, emotional biases and all that kind of stuff. It just acts there in order to help that individual feel great and do the right decisions. So very much objectively. So I think that there, especially, people are more so, I would very much assume that people are more so drawn then towards AI coaching when it comes to online coaching. But then the personal aspect, yes, those people who want that personal touch, they won't seek the personal touch online. They will probably seek it then offline. Sure, there will be very, very few exceptions for this. Some people who truly made it, who made a name for themselves, where people then are seeking to work with that individual for sure. But I don't even think that it's worth for the vast majority of people, if you're planning on doing this for the next 10, 20, 30 years, to then transition into online coaching. I really don't think that it's worth it anymore.
I'd be interested to see, because I know I'd be interested to see the numbers in terms of, I think it's somewhere like in Japan where they've got like AI girlfriends, like this has become a thing. And if
really,
yeah, I think I've heard I heard something about this. So I'd be interested to know if that was successful, because I mean that's even a more like tight bound relationship, and the human aspect of that is even larger. So if males, or it might have even been China because of their one child policy, and that ended up leading to lots of males being kind of single. I wonder, like, if you interviewed some of these men and, like, don't know, just asked them, like, how good is it? And maybe, like you said, maybe some of them have really, I don't know if it's even convincing themselves. I feel like that would have to be how it would be, but I'm not sure. Maybe they're like, actually, yeah, this AI treats me right, you know?
Yeah, because once again, the AI has no ulterior motives. You can say whatever you want, basically, and it will always respond in a way that is tailored to you and what it is that you like. And if you don't like it, you can actually make some modifications to it. But I don't know, though, if it's a good thing, because I think that conflict is inherently a positive thing.
Yeah.
And stress as well, and being challenged and all that kind of stuff, which is something that often, unfortunately, over the past couple of years now, has turned into, if you are challenging someone, you're immediately hating or disrespecting that individual's opinion or what they stand for. And that is, of course, I don't really think what many people truly think, but it has turned into something like this. Cancel culture, for example, is a perfect example and representation of this. That people aren't even allowed to disagree anymore in a reasonable manner. Right? Yeah. And then to bring it back to AI girlfriends or boyfriends, doesn't really matter. I think that if you're not having that interaction and also sometimes challenge and stress and all that kind of stuff, you're always just being confirmed of your views and your worldview and your opinion and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think that this is a healthy thing at all.
No, not at all. So yeah, I will agree with you that I think it's probably inevitable that will be replaced at some point. It's at some point that I have such a hard time trying to think about. I guess you probably won't see it. I wonder if the first stage is kind of like the apps that are coming out, such as like RP, their app.
Yes.
I mean, everyone has an app now, like the big names at least, not everyone. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Menno's working on an app as an example, like Strong by Science have an app. Like
I totally agree with you. I think that it's a gradual process that you don't even notice and recognize. And then it's probably that many of those online coaches are then, I don't know, having an app themselves. And it's a slow transition into a more automated process where then the personal trainer isn't really a personal trainer anymore. He's more like a programmer. Setting some adjustments on the back end and all that kind of stuff.
I imagine the more niche you are in terms of the person you're helping, maybe the better your position you're in, because you're in like you're an expert in that field. I'm just thinking for us, like as bodybuilding coaches, well, not that all of our clients are kind of competitors, but a large chunk of them compete or want to compete or have aspirations that way. We kind of set ourselves into that position. And I just think about, I don't know, I'm sure you had it with to talk about your competitor this weekend. I don't know her name actually, so you'll have to say that, but she did really well in her bikini masters. I think she did. Was that also, right? Yeah. I'm glad I got that right, because that could have been tricky territory to have gone through, but I thought I saw that. And just the human connection that you have together and how you've helped her through that. And that's based off also you going through it yourself. Like she knows you've got lean, you've taken other people there. There's something about that I think is going to take a while to replicate.
Yeah, I think so too. On that note as well, Steve, because we've talked about coaching, and I think that we've talked about it via voice message over on WhatsApp. And I had a consultation here today with someone who signed up for coaching. And she was asking me some questions about how long it would take to actually reach her goals. And I was saying that I'm at a point in my career where I can basically guarantee success. But I can only do this if you do what you're supposed to be doing. So if I'm giving you instructions, that you are following through with those. This doesn't mean that I'm a dictator where it's like, okay, my way or the highway. However, I move in a tight range of recommendations and ways to do certain things. I make modifications, and then I'm expecting my athletes to follow them to the best of their abilities. The closer you can stick to those recommendations, the more likely it is that you're going to see the results. And I've been doing this for long enough to know that the things that I give out, the recommendations that I'm giving out, generally work out. Of course, we know it from the scientific literature, there are always very much outliers that you hardly ever though work with. So generally speaking, I'm very confident in saying that I can already now start guaranteeing progress if the other party is doing what they are supposed to be doing. And I wanted to discuss this with you, Steve. Do you feel the same about this? Do you feel confident enough to make those bold claims? And what do you think about this?
So when you say it, I think it sounds bold, but when you boil it down, I think it becomes less bold, because it actually requires, I think it sounds like it puts a lot of pressure on the client themselves. But actually, I think it also requires a lot from the coach, because you don't get robots. Very rarely you get someone who sometimes we do get these people. I probably have quite a few, to be fair, because we do attract that sort of person who you give them kind of directions and they execute. But even with those individuals, and actually I had a chat with one of my clients today where he was like, I didn't view my opinion on things as highly as yours, so I kept quite a lot to myself and I just did what you told me. And that's not what either of us, like, you don't want that, I don't want that. We don't want people to follow instructions blindly. We need feedback to personalize it, troubleshoot things, because like you said, there's broad generalizations that work really well, but the kind of the best results come when we can identify and individualize. So it actually requires like communication on their end to tell us what they can commit to, what they can't commit to, and then for us as a coach to troubleshoot and find the best solution for them. So I'm like you, very confident in being able to do that, but I'd be kind of sad if we didn't feel this way because of how long we've been doing it with ourselves and with clients. Maybe other people view it as bold. I think given that context, and for you personally, I don't think it's a bold claim.
Absolutely. And I don't know why I've been thinking about baking a cake, for example. If you've been doing this for, I don't know, 10 years, you probably have a very good understanding of how to bake a specific cake. Of course, could it be even better than this? Sure. But you can confidently say that you are able to do a cake that everyone kind of enjoys, right? And it's kind of the same thing here. You've been doing this since such a long time that with the right ingredients and the right recipe in front of you, you should be able to create the result that is on paper, for example. Yeah. And of course, sometimes you need to make modifications, but that is the prerequisite when someone is signing up with you. You are giving them instructions of what it is that you need. And that is not just about instructions. This is what you are supposed to be doing in terms of training and nutrition, but also this is what you need to be doing in terms of letting me know what works and not what works and what doesn't, because you as a coach are the one who needs to figure that one out, but more so like you need to give me and provide me with the feedback that is required in order then to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if, I don't know, someone just went through the program and they just did the sets and the reps and they didn't give any form feedback and they didn't kind of fill out any of the kind of biofeedback markers that we might measure in terms of like recoverability or anything like that. And it just wouldn't work, because then they might as well be using some very good apps that are out there. Mm-hmm. When you have a coach, like it's not just a spreadsheet and to fill it out. That's not the coaching part. That's the like, you can just buy a PDF if you want that. And that's why you get coaching, because it's kind of that next level of things. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And actually, and to throw this one at you, Pascal, the same individual, he asked, and I find these questions really hard, and I'm sure you've had it, Pascal, where someone will say, what do you think of my results after the last 3 months? Like, do you think I've had good results after the last 6 months or something? They throw that one at you. And I'm always like, I'm not going to give you the answer you want because I'm not going to just say yes. I don't know do you want to have a go at it before I continue? Yes,
let me come from a different perspective, because I recently heard Eric Helms say that the role as a coach is also to encourage and motivate your client. And to be honest, I disagree. But this is just my style of coaching, and that doesn't mean that it applies to every other coach out there. I see demographics and specific coaches who, especially when you're working with Gen Pop clients, yes, I do believe that you should encourage and motivate the person that you're working with, because for them, the biggest hurdle is to be consistently in the gym, consistent with your macros, and to motivate yourself going regularly into the gym. However, for me personally, and the people that I want to train with, the motivation shouldn't really be any kind of factor anymore. It should already be there. I am not the coach who wants to motivate you in order to go out and train and do your very best and try to change something. That motivation should already be there if you want to work with me, at least. So this is a little bit of a different spin to your question. When then someone is asking me, well, how did I do over the past 3 months? Most of the time, it's the same as you. I find myself saying something encouraging, of course. And there is probably also some progress there. It's not just like deception or bringing up something that isn't there. But at the same time, I'm also honest and saying that in such a short time frame, it's probably not what it is that you're hoping for. And we need more time in order to really see the differences. And I brought it up a couple of times in the past that I think that you need at least 6 months to a year to truly see visual differences. And I'm not talking about cutting. Cutting, yes, you can see changes in a very short amount of time, but we are talking about changes to your overall body composition, i.e., more muscle mass while probably also carrying less body fat at the same body weight overall. And that takes a longer time. And I'm not the person then to be in a gaining phase after 3 months saying things such as, oh yeah, we've built so much muscle mass here around the delts, when I know myself that I'm full of shit, bringing up those things, because most of the time it's just fat that we've accumulated around that body part. It's something like water retention and all that kind of stuff. And that's why often I don't even say a lot about the physique in an off season. It's more, I have those pictures, I request those pictures for future reference points, and also to make sure that we are still staying in a tight boundary and not deviating too much. It's more like a check mark for me that we are not gaining too quickly, rather than anything else.
Yeah, I really struggle then when I see, and I don't know exactly the reasons for this, and I hope it isn't the reason that it could be, where I see coaches getting like weekly check-in photos from clients. I'm like, if they're in an off-season, in a gaining phase, what do you expect to see in a week? Maybe as an unnatural competitor, there's more rapid changes that are going on that are informing you of something. But for me, if I was getting like, I'm not looking at client photos every week, even when they send them to me in a gaining phase, like at the end of the mesocycle, like I might review them quickly, like you said, just to see body fat levels and things like this. But I'm not assessing that photo versus last month to see what changes have been made, because most of us are gaining more fat than we are muscle. And so actually you just maybe look a bit bigger and worse. And then it's a reference point, like you said, checking back to previous photos. And to bring it back to the question of like 6 months, have I seen the results you'd expect? I really struggle, because I think like everyone's got individual genetics and how they're going to respond. Everyone's environment is slightly different in terms of stress levels, lifestyle. Do they go out on weekends? And so I'm like, I don't have a good reference point for what results you should have seen. So I was like, I can't really comment on too much on that. What I can comment on is your dedication to the process. And I was like, well, you've stuck to the process pretty damn well. And the amount you've stuck to, I'd expect you to see good results on the other side. And so I would say that what we've seen is what you can kind of expect, is that whole like, don't focus on like where you are versus other people in your genetics and how you're doing. You just have to do your best job. You'll get what you get. It's kind of boils it down to that. And I don't think people like that, because they want to see like, oh, they saw this client transformation, and so can't I achieve that? It's like, well, how long would it take me to achieve that? I'm sure that's the sort of question some people have. And I'm always like, I'm a terrible salesperson, because I'm like, I can never guarantee you're going to be able to achieve that. I need to work with you for a while, and you might be able to achieve more than that. Let's say that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick break, and then we are back in a minute.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
On that note then, I do remember that one trader once said that you can't ever win. You will never be happy and satisfied most of the time, because if it heads into your direction, so you have a hinge, for example, that, I don't know, the stock market is going up, or the stock that you are betting on is going up as well. So you're betting some money, but because you're risk averse, you're not betting all of your money, of course. If it goes and heads into your direction, then you're unhappy because you think, I should have gone actually deeper into this or invest a little bit more. If it heads into the other direction, you're also not happy because you're now losing some money. Right? So there is no way of winning. The only thing that you can do is do your very best, put in the work and effort, basically, and then appreciate the small targets and the small profits that you're taking. Right. And that goes back to kind of seeing the small minor results over a longer period of time seeing visual changes, maybe some PRs here and there in the gym, feeling better, having a better relationship maybe with food and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These are the small wins that add up over time and make you wealthy in terms of kind of training and nutrition. And instead of then thinking, I should have invested more here, and I don't know, this was a waste that I tried, I don't know, a little bit of higher frequency or whatever, right? You won't really be happy if you focus on those things.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I know that type of person all too well, because I see them when they do coach hop,
Yeah,
where they are, and we've talked about it several times, where they're looking for that silver bullet. They're like, that person didn't quite have it for me, so this person must have the secret, and they stick with that coach for 3 months and someone else for 3 months or something. It's like, in reality, probably every coach has a very similar kind of philosophy there, and yeah, maybe there's slight differences in who's a little bit more optimal or up to date with the science or whatever it is. But probably the person you get on best, who gets you doing what you need to do, is going to be the best coach, who gets you adhering, like we've spoken about before. The biggest difference between the most jacked and less jacked is time. It's not this little like nuanced thing that they're doing with their training or nutrition, which you might hyper focus on too much. Yeah, and genetics.
Because of you, I don't know if you've seen that I don't know, it was a video of some kind of construction worker in Africa, and he was shoveling topless, and he was jacked and ripped to the gills, right? And people were just like saying, all right, you don't need to have a gym to actually look this way and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's just like, man, what's wrong? I've been doing this since 10 years and I'm not even looking like this, right?
Yeah, it's actually Ben Carpenter just did a post on this, where it was someone did like a reel being like, how do some people stand so lean all the time? And this person was like, steroids. And then another person like did a take of that reel and went, actually, maybe steroids, but also genetics play a huge role. And then he came in and he was like, the reason steroids or drugs and genetics often aren't spoken about within the wider fitness industry are because so many fitness influencers use their physique, their great genetics, or the PEDs they're on to sell you something. And they're like, the reason I can maintain 6-pack abs all year isn't my genetics, isn't the fact I'm on PEDs, it's because I got the secret for you to sell. And he was like, and credit to Ben, he does not do that at all. And he stays like, he's in great shape, but he is very honest. And he was honest in the video, like he finds it easy to stay in that shape, but you might not. And that's where I take a lot of solace in that someone like him is built to such a size and a following, and he's got like his book now out there, so I'm assuming he's doing very well. It kind of brings me hope for us, and I just could never do it where I'm like, if I release like an ebook on how to build big biceps, I'd be like, fuck it. It would just be one page, like have my parents or something. Obviously there's more to it than that. I've worked for these arms, but still not as hard as you, Pascal, as an example, may have worked harder to build your biceps to where they are than I have to build my biceps to where they are.
Could very well be. We never really know. And how you won't get a medal or an award for if you worked harder than the other person. Unless, of course, you're, I don't know, competing against each other and someone judges you based off of those criteria, then it could very well be. But other than that, you're not being rewarded of doing something better than anyone else. And unless you're a competitor, once again. And often, unfortunately, what I found to be the case is the smartest people, the hardest workers aren't often the ones who are the most successful and get the most rewards, unfortunately. I don't want, you can see it from many different perspectives, fortunately or unfortunately, right? But this is just what it is, right? And you just do you try your very best. I think that everyone is like a hamster in their hamster wheel trying to move forward, and some make it out and actually then walk through the world, and some will always, walk in their hamster wheel.
Yeah, I want to flip this discussion on its head. I think it's been good, and I can't believe we're already 40 minutes in. But I do want to touch on your competitor. How did she do? Because we spoke about Mitch last week, and I had Mitch and Ryan compete this past weekend, and you had your client as well. So let the listeners know.
She did very, very well. Took second in 3 different categories. And the only reason why she didn't take first place was due to posing. And that's actually something that I do appreciate, though, right? Where it's not a thing that is up for debate, where some people say, oh, you've been robbed or anything alike. You've been so much leaner. You had so much more muscle mass on you. It was more like a representation of how you presented yourself on stage, and someone else did it a little bit better, which was more so tailored to then the bikini competition. And the biggest reason was that she didn't really twisted her hips more so to the front, and by that presented her glutes a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And that was the biggest reason, right? And some people would be angry about this, but I really do appreciate something like this also as a feedback, because I even said to her in the check-in that this is feedback that I appreciate because we can do something about this. If a judge is saying, oh, this time you looked a little bit soft, next time come in harder. So you're just saying that we need to get a little bit leaner or so, right? Or when someone says, yeah, you need to build more muscle mass. Yeah, no shit. Everyone as a bodybuilder needs to build more muscle mass, right? That's the name of the game, basically. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Mitch got his feedback, and I know where they're coming from with this, but I was like, man, that infuriates me. They're like, I can't even say it without laughing. More symmetrical abs was the feedback. That's
try to
more
work
symmetrical
on this
abs.
one. Yeah. Thank you very much for that very constructive
I'll
feedback.
go get some surgery.
And that's what I mean, right? I even said to her before the show, ask for feedback, but also take it with a little bit of grain of salt, because sometimes they don't even remember you anymore, which has nothing to do with you, especially when you didn't place that well. Also, people are just inherently like this. If you ask them for their opinion or feedback, nearly all of them will have an opinion, even though if it's warranted or not. Yeah. Because they don't really want to stand there saying like, sorry, I can't really recall you that much anymore. Sorry for this, right? So most of the time they will give you something, and often it's not even that appropriate. And if it's something that you will then be able to work on in the off season, I think that's feedback that is unnecessary, because in the off season is there to build muscle mass. And the next time you're hopefully coming back in much, much better shape.
Yeah, in the short term, that's why it's actually really great feedback she got, because she can bring that. Whereas like it's nice to not get that sort of feedback, because then it is stuff you can only work on in your off season. You're like, I did everything I could have for this show.
Yeah.
But assuming she has more shows, she can work on that in the short term. And that means she could win maybe next time. Like
exactly.
She can actually improve.
Exactly. And that is why I said I really appreciate that form of feedback when it's especially around posing. I don't even need feedback around, okay, this time you didn't. So the thing that I've brought up about being soft also, right? Especially when it's the first show, it could very well be for some competitors that you don't really want to be your very leanest at that first show. And sometimes, unfortunately, you know it yourself, Steve, maybe not so much in the WMBF because they have very good judges, but some other federations or so where they are saying something and they don't even know themselves what they truly mean.
I worry sometimes, because I felt this little bit of pressure when I judged and people asked me for feedback on the day. And it's like you said, sometimes you just actually can't remember them, because when they're dressed and you just see their face, you're like, I wasn't really looking at your face
without the
too much. I was looking exactly. I was looking at your physique. So I was just, I'm glad I just was like, right, message me on Instagram, get some photos across, then I can critique you. And then I was like I was trying to give short-term feedback and then long-term feedback. So it's like, long-term feedback was like off-season stuff that you need to do. Short-term was like, what could you do in the short term? Because I think some judges unfortunately can like feel pressured to have to give feedback and sound like, I don't know, really clever. And like, I don't know, it looked like you were a bit harder in the evening show. And did you have extra water or fluids? And like, I'm like, you don't know about their process at all. How are you making these sort of comments? Like, it's
yes. And I wanted to say, before you started saying something about being spilled or looking spilled, how do you want to know this? You're probably mostly referring to that you think that person had too much body fat still.
Yeah.
right? Which is totally fair then. But for her, it was the first show, so great start to the season. I think that we did everything right in not pushing her any further when it comes to the level of leanness, even though that she also got a little bit of feedback around they wanted more details and definition around the glutes and the hamstrings, which I even said to her, I don't really think it's a great idea, because this comes at the expense of actually looking much, much leaner on the rib cage and the abs, which is often something that is not wanted. So it could be that you're then bringing the glutes and the hamstrings that they are desiring, but on the contrary, that they are then downvoting you, and then you end up in the same spot as well as before. So that's what we did. She had a great time. She went into the shows with very little stress, because we ate her way into the show. We didn't need to bother about peak week or anything alike. It was just about packing your stuff, which I have a list for, of course, for my athletes. Pack your stuff, prepare yourself for the show, and just execute and enjoy the day, because you did everything that you needed to do. It's not anything stressful anymore. You don't really need to be concerned about get that meal in at that time when you have especially something like backloading or anything alike. And this helps tremendously, especially when you're then starting a show. And this is also the look that we are then trying to maintain for the next show. And perhaps I even said to her, maybe we want to play for the last show with actually pushing you a little bit leaner. But at the same time, you could make a counter argument as well, that we then already had for then the post-show period, 4 weeks of it around maintenance. Why would we want to push another time so that you're then ending up in a more vulnerable position afterwards? This way, at least, you're eating your way into the shows. You have the goals in front of you. So something, or a reason why you want to actually really be on point with your macros. At the same time, the body is already able to recover a little bit. And it isn't as with so many competitors who are ending their contest prep season that they are then left without a goal anymore. And then they are struggling. If you're already having the luxury of starting their recovery period with the last shows, then coming out of the show in a more recovered state already, and then end up without having a goal in front of you, that's of course much, much better, which makes sense. Don't you think so, Steve?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the ideal situation. We kind of spoke about it last time. The ideal situation to be in is you've already kind of, you've come up to maintenance, you're hovering around there, you're kind of in this perma-peaked kind of condition where it's like, oh man, I wish I could maintain this all the time, but you can't. You've got that kind of goal short term, which keeps you able to adhere, because it is actually unreasonably difficult to try and adhere to that. And unless you've got amazing genetics, or maybe some PEDs could help with that, especially for a bikini level of leanness, it's still lean, depending how lean you get and who you're competing with. But yeah, it's much easier then to transition versus it's almost like a yo-yo down. And also you've built the physique into a position where it's dealing with kind of carbohydrates really well. Training performance is probably slightly improving. It's a fuller, just better look, and she's going to look more lively on stage. If you just try and it's almost like trying to do a week mini cut or 2 week mini cut. You're probably just cutting glycogen stores largely at that point. So I don't know how beneficial it would be. So I think your rationale there sounds great. It probably feels wrong to her, because I think all competitors, I think we're all the same, where you always want to be pushing, and we're like, no, it should feel hard. And it probably doesn't feel as hard as she expects. I have to say, though,
she's doing a fantastic job. Honestly, the entire prep, she was never really complaining. When she felt down, she was reporting back to me in a very, very reasonable fashion without sounding too overly emotional. I'm not saying that emotional decisions and stuff are always inherently bad. I think that being emotional has gotten a bad rap overall, that when you're acting emotionally, then you are more so acting like a small child and you're always making the wrong decisions. And I don't think that's a fair assessment overall. In that case, though, especially in that vulnerable state of being super lean, she did a fantastic job. She always executed. She always performed well. She always reported back to me in a reasonable manner. And now we are at a point where we are reaping the rewards. And she can be so proud of herself And I think that she will pull it through all the way up to the end. And I think that she is also very, very happy and proud about herself, because if you see the comparison pictures to the last season, it's a night and day of a difference. And the funny thing is, and I didn't know this up until the last weekend, the boyfriend of her sister seems to be a bodybuilder who is enhanced, I would very much assume, based on the pictures that I saw on his Instagram. And I just knew about him because he tagged me in one of the pictures of her stage shots. And he was even saying, like, they did a fantastic job here together. So he called us both out, not called us out, but gave us props. And if it comes from someone like him, who has a very, very solid amount of muscle mass and a great physique as well, I trust that on stage it looked good.
No, that's awesome. I'm really happy about that, and I'm excited to see how she does with the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And it sounds like she is in a very similar position to Mitch, where he placed third in his show this weekend. And it was another, with the OCB, so it was another one where it's just open. So it was like all heights, all weights, like just thrown in.
Very interesting setup, eh?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because they don't have enough competitors to separate them out into individual classes. I imagine that might be the case, because there wasn't even like tons of people in that class. I think there was like 6 or something along those lines. And yeah, super proud of him. We pushed his carbohydrates much higher not much higher, a good 25% higher this time through just like a linear load through the week. And we're like, last time we edged towards being a bit risk averse and maybe wanting condition over kind of max fullness. And we're like, this time, if anything, let's push for max fullness, because his lower body's shredded and in, but his upper body is also shredded and in, but is lacking in size compared to lower body. So it's like, whatever we can do to get you more mass up there. And honestly, don't think we spilled. I think he just brought a fantastic look to stage. It's just, he lost to people who had better symmetry. I'll put it that way. That's basically what it came down to. Better symmetry in terms of upper to lower, more matched, but also just their shape. And I think because Mitch has such a large frame, actually very similar to myself when I first competed, like I still don't really look like a bodybuilder in some ways, symmetry wise, but when I first competed, very straight up and down. And so I think Mitch actually is quite a small waist, but when he builds up his upper body, I think he'll really be a force there. So that went really well. He's got another show in a couple of weeks. And so we're in a similar position to yours, where it's just like, we're kind of at maintenance. We potentially spilled, though, after this show. His weight really shot up. So we may have to bring calories down a little bit to kind of remove some of that excess glycogen, but it should be a relatively easy job. He's dealing with it super well. And then Ryan competed, who, I don't know if we spoke about last time, or if I just spoke to you individually about him.
No, very quickly.
Yeah, so this was his first show of the season, and so we've basically been targeting fat loss up until this point. But now this show's done, he's basically as conditioned as he needs to be for men's physique. He's got striated chest, he's got feathering in his lower back, he's got tricep feathers. Like, what more do we want? So we're in a position where we're slowly eating up.
And he has a tremendous shape as well. So I could see him doing very, very well. Of course, this always depends on who's showing up and what the judges are looking for, but just objectively saying, he has a tremendous physique for men's physique.
Yeah, he came second. The guy that beat him had more overall muscle. He was just big. Like, he was just a big fucking guy. Yeah. And men's physique's an interesting one. I'm never, even as a judge for that category, there's some more subjectivity to it, because in bodybuilding, the biggest, most shredded guy is going to win. Yeah. But you could be too big for men's physique, but then it's a case of like, what's too big? So in my eyes, the guy that won it, actually, Ryan sent me a video, so I'm going to check that over before I comment too much, but he looked very big and less conditioned. And that was the feedback Ryan got. It was like, fantastic, you were more conditioned, but it wasn't enough to edge out the other guy's size that he had on top of you. So
interesting.
We're in a great position to build on that and get more size through fullness. And yeah, Ryan's got like a nice tapered waist, like there's nothing like lacking on his physique, nice chest, really thick dominant abs, like they're just ridiculous. Like I'm like, the crevices between those must be like centimeters deep. Like looking at them like, whoa. Man.
Grand Canyon.
So yeah, that's exciting.
No, yeah, amazing. Steve, we're coming up on time, and I just wanted to touch on one thing that I've nearly forgotten to talk about, and I think it's the perfect ending for the show, because on Saturday I went into the gym, of course, and my gym is always opening up at 9 a.m. in the morning on weekends, which is quite late. I find myself. So yeah.
Same with my gym.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not the point. So I was minding my own business, doing my training session there, you know, and at some point there was this one guy. I've never seen him in the gym. You could already tell by the way that he was walking around, well, kind of a weird fella, you know, like as if the entire place is his own thing. I was also kind of walking around very angry the entire time. Anyway, he was walking around and then always reserving kind of machines with his towel, which is not a big deal. I think you can do this if then other people are allowed to chime in, because why not? When you're resting, when you're walking around, someone else can easily jump in, do his set, and you can immediately jump on it when it's your turn or time. And I was doing my last exercise for the day. I was doing like cable rows, seated cable rows. And someone else was actually then looking at me and saying like, is this your towel? Just a very friendly guy. I said, no idea, right? And then this other guy came running and shouting at him, saying things such as like, don't you know how what the rules are and stuff like this, right? And then he went away and then turned around again because he didn't have enough. So he was shouting at him again. And I'm just, I don't know, there are situations where I think like I should keep my mouth shut. But I hate it at the same time because it's simply not who I am. If I see something that I find inappropriate, I want to stand up for it, especially when someone is getting shit that is inappropriate. And I hate it when people are just bystanders and not doing anything. This is something that I don't really find appropriate. To be fair, though, you shouldn't always interfere because you could put yourself or maybe even your family at risk at times. And sometimes it's also inappropriate. Also inappropriate if it's really none of your business. But it's a fucking gym facility. Everyone's there to have, hopefully, a good time. It's not your place. You don't own the machine. So I was actually then saying something, and it was not the right way to go about it. Because I was still sitting on my seated cable row. And I was just shouting at him, saying like, you're not on holiday. You can't just use your towel to reserve the machines. You can do this on holiday because that's just a German thing, reserving kind of the places at the pool. And
I know exactly it.
He lashed out, man. He went over to me and I was also there doing the wrong move because I was standing up from my seated cable row, probably giving him the impression that I'm ready to go. You know, and he was coming over to me like that close to my face, spitting into my face, screaming at me, shouting at me the entire time. Who are you even? Yada, 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 right? I was trying to calm him down, saying, hey, I just want, and he was just interrupting me the entire time. I couldn't get a word. I was just like, at some point, I was shaking my head and just turning around and leaving because I could really see that this doesn't really lead anywhere. You couldn't talk to this guy. And at the same time, I'm not there to fight, like physically fight. I think that it is the most idiotic and ridiculous thing to fight in general, but especially in a gym facility, it can't get any lower than this. So I can't be bothered getting into a fight like this, a physical fight in a gym facility. How low can you go? And he was ready. He was ready. So, yeah, that was my story that I wanted to share with you.
In that situation, how was the old heart? Was your heart racing as he came towards you? And
funny enough, not so much.
See, if that was me, I would be having like a fight or flight response.
Yeah, normally I would have as well, because I was in situations like these in the past as well, not necessarily in a gym facility, but normally I respond to it like this as well, but perhaps it was just because I was tired from the training session, I don't know, or because I was just thinking that it was so utterly ridiculous. And in the end, you always wish that you react differently in those situations when you think about it, right? Like in hindsight, you think, I wish I would have said X, Y, Z. The good thing is, though, that when I was changing in the locker, the other guy came actually to me and said like, hey, thank you very much that you stood up and supported me in that situation. I just want to say that and let you know that I found it very, very cool that you did that. Which I find cool, right? Because I found the other guy so inappropriate and his behavior so inappropriate. And that's why I hate it when just bystanders are there and just watching and looking, and maybe it's escalating even, I wanted to let him know, like, hey, man, this guy is acting inappropriately and I'm here for you if anything, you know? Yeah.
It is, I definitely see your perspective on it. But I'm glad you brought up the fact that sometimes it's not right to stand in, because there is definitely situations where, I don't know, you just can see someone's not right completely.
Yeah.
I don't know what could be happening. They're on drugs or whatever. Inside a gym, you should be relatively safe, but like outside, I don't know, people can have knives, whatever. Like, it's just
exactly
not worth it.
And also there, I was thinking like, I don't know who that guy is. And I was actually, so the entire day, it was in my mind of like, man, Pascal, you didn't know who that guy is. And
he could
you
be a
never
gang
know.
master,
Yeah,
or whatever
you never know, you know? And maybe
Yeah.
you pissed him off that much that next time he will stand there on a Saturday just ready with his bobos to fight you or whatever, you know?
It's true.
It could be
we laugh,
that.
but it could
Yeah,
be.
it could be because you, I don't know, hurt his egos that much that it was for him such an inappropriate thing that you are going to pay for it. And I was thinking then the entire day about it, and it was bothering me like big time, and thinking, should I really acted? Should I really stood up for this? And Katie even said, like, Pascal, this is what I love about you, that you actually then stand up and say those things, even though that at times it's probably not it's probably inappropriate and it's not the right idea. In itself, it's something that I respect you for, and this makes me happy to hear, to be honest. But yeah, it is just, man, once again, it's just the lowest to fight in a gym physically.
Yeah. Charlotte is more like you. She will, at times where I'm like, I'm not even, it doesn't have to be like that, but it's just like if someone's like a bit rude to me or whatever, I'm just like, so often I'm just like, it's just not worth it. I'm just like, fuck, like, what's it called? Water off a duck's back type of thing. I'm just like, I'm not going to get stressed about it, where she's like, no, they can't do that to us. That's so disrespectful. And I love her for that, because it's just not me, and we need to balance each other there. So yeah, I can totally see the situation that you were in, and I would not have liked to have been in it, to be honest.
But I turned from me to you in this situation because I found myself that it doesn't really lead anywhere, and I was just rolling my eyes like, oh, you know those type of people, you're trying to say something and they immediately shout over your voice, and it was that situation. I was trying to say something, he was getting louder, trying to say something again, getting even louder. Where it's just like, dude, do you realize why you're shouting at the moment? You're shouting about someone taking away your fucking towel from a machine in a gym facility while others are training as well. How freaking ridiculous is this? Anyway, I think it's the perfect time to end the show.
Yeah, there are some people that just cannot be reasoned with, so it's not worth the bother sometimes. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. It went very quickly for me, so that's normally a sign of a very good discussion. So hopefully it was for you guys. And I don't think we've got any particular news to share with you. So just as always, like, subscribe, give us a comment. Share it over on Instagram, give us a tag, always appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.